Today, we're talking forgotten bow brands, the kinds of recurves that didn't chase trends but quietly shaped how traditional archery shoots today. These bows weren't built for hype or display cases. They were built for work. Some became stuff of legends, while others slipped through the cracks. But regardless, they're the bows collectors hunt for and shooters still trust. Let's get right into it. Harold Groves Archery. Harold Groves started building bows as a young man, years before he was recruited to work in Los Alamos in 1951. He selected woods carefully, pairing them with fiberglass in ways that preserved natural flex while controlling limb recovery. His work was shaped by a rather unusual cross-pollination with science. Informal Friday afternoon gatherings initiated by J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, brought physicists and engineers into direct conversation with Groves. Discussions applied modern physics and engineering theory to limb dynamics, stress distribution, and energy transfer. The result? Bows with a reputation for exceptional speed. Shooting one of his own bows with a draw weight of 114 pounds, Groves set a world distance record by sending a broadhead arrow 444 yards from a standing position. These bows built a legacy, then vanished. Subscribe now to uncover the forgotten brands behind today's archery foundations and the rare models collectors still chase. While Groves remained a craftsman at heart, these exchanges refined his understanding of efficiency and recovery, quietly influencing designs that felt smoother, quieter, and more controlled than many of their contemporaries. Models like the Spitfire GS300, the Spitfire Prestige Special, and the Flame Hunter come to mind. Groves never scaled production aggressively, which does limit the number of surviving examples. Each bow reflects individual attention, and minor variations between models are common. It's one of the many things that increases collectors' interest. As is the case with all vintage stuff, the condition of the bow determines the collector's value. Original strings, tips, and finishes significantly affect value. Well-preserved examples command strong prices, not because of branding, but because of how the bow behaves. Groves bows remind shooters that refinement doesn't require complexity. Another aspect collectors quietly value is Groves' restraint. He didn't chase exaggerated limb reflex or aggressive profiles, which means many of his bows aged gracefully. Stress fractures and limb twist appear less frequently than on more radical designs of the same era. That durability wasn't accidental. It reflected a Boyer who prioritized longevity over speed claims. For modern shooters, that means these bows still shoot comfortably decades later. But not all legends make the spotlight. Subscribe to explore the forgotten bow makers whose gear shaped traditional archery, and why their creations are now priceless finds. Black Widow bows. Black Widow bows earned its reputation the slow way, no marketing noise. Founded in the late 1950s, the company focused on recurves that delivered speed without punishing the shooter. Early Black Widows weren't flashy. The risers were clean, the limb profiles conservative, the finish practical. What mattered was how the bow behaved once it came to full draw. Shooters noticed immediately. The draw cycle felt deliberate and controlled, stacking less than many competitors of the era. Limb recovery was fast, which translated into flatter trajectories and cleaner arrow flight. Black Widow leaned heavily into fiberglass laminations over hardwood cores, not because it looked impressive, but because it held up in heat, cold, and humidity. Hunters trusted these bows in rough conditions, and that trust became the brand's currency. Production numbers remained relatively low, which plays directly into collector demand today. Early models like the X99 and 101 series from the Wilson Brothers era, the X400 made of white toxinite, and the MA3 takedown model from the 90s all bring strong prices, especially when draw weights fall into modern shootable ranges. Even bows showing honest field wear still attract interest, largely because they were used hard and kept working. What makes early Black Widows collectible isn't just nostalgia alone. There's this overwhelming sense that these bows were built by people who expected them to be shot, not displayed. It's a mindset that still resonates with traditional archers, who value performance much more than flashy styling. Another reason collectors gravitate towards early Black Widows is tuning latitude. See, these bows respond very well to brace height changes, string material swaps, and arrow spine adjustments, which keep them relatively even by modern shooting standards. Many vintage recurves feel locked into one setup, but Black Widows reward experimentation. That adaptability explains why some shooters never retire them, even after acquiring newer bows. They remain practical tools, not fragile relics, which adds to their long-term appeal. Damon Howitt and Martin bows. Damon Howitt bows occupy a special corner of traditional archery history, especially those produced during the collaboration with Martin. Howitt was a bowyer first, not a businessman, and that shaped every design decision. When Martin brought manufacturing consistency to the table, the result was a series of bows that felt unusually refined for their time. These bows blended laminated hardwood risers with fiberglass limbs that were tuned for smooth energy transfer. The draw felt linear, predictable, and forgiving. Shooters often described Howitt bows as cooperative rather than demanding, which made them popular with hunters who valued repeatable accuracy over raw speed. The Martin partnership allowed Howitt designs to reach a wider audience, but production was still limited by modern standards. Certain models were produced in small runs, and variations in wood selection mean no two examples feel exactly the same. That individuality has become part of the appeal. Collectors look closely at limb condition, tip integrity, and original finishes, and prices climb quickly for early bows that remain unmodified, like the Del Rey, Monterey, and Palomar, especially ones that come with documentation tying them to early Martin production. These bows don't shout their importance, they simply perform, and decades later, that quiet competence still carries weight. There's also an emotional layer to the Howitt-era Martin bows that's just hard to describe. Many were purchased by serious shooters who kept them for decades, which means examples that surface today often come with handwritten notes, faded receipts, or stories passed down through families. That kind of provenance doesn't show up in catalogs, but it matters. It turns the bow into a personal artifact rather than a generic vintage item, deepening collector interest. Wing archery. Wing archery never chased mass appeal, and that may be why its bows feel so personal today. The company focused on recurves and longbows that balanced speed with control, often using carefully matched laminations to achieve consistent limb timing. Wing bows were known for being forgiving at release, a trait hunters appreciated when shooting under pressure. The riser designs were practical rather than decorative, and grip geometry favored repeatable hand placement, which helped shooters maintain consistency across long shooting sessions. Limb profiles leaned towards efficiency, producing respectable arrow speed without excessive vibration. Production numbers were modest, and Wing never pursued aggressive advertising. As a result, many of these bows circulated quietly through hunting camps rather than catalogs, which explains why clean examples are harder to find today. Many were used hard, then passed down without much thought to preservation. When a well-kept wing bow surfaces, collectors respond quickly. Value tends to track condition more than model name, and original finishes matter. These bows appeal to shooters who appreciate design choices made for function rather than trend, and that appreciation continues to grow. Wing bows also occupy a transitional moment in archery history, bridging handcrafted tradition and small-scale production. There are models like the Red Wing Hunter from the Houston-era production, the Red Wing Custom with white glass, and the Challenger Takedown target bow, among others. What this means is none of them were experimental prototypes, but none of them were factory churn either. They were in the middle ground, which gave Wing the freedom to refine limb geometry without chasing volume. Browning archery. Browning's entry into archery brought a familiar name into a very different craft. While the company was already well known for the guns John Moses Browning designed, its archery division focused on recurves built for reliability and repeated performance. Browning bows emphasized solid construction, often using fiberglass laminations that resisted warping and fatigue. Hunters appreciated the consistency. Browning bows like the Explorer 2, the Safari 2, and the Challenge, among others, all handled weather changes well and maintained point of impact across seasons. The grip designs favored control over comfort padding, encouraging proper hand placement and follow-through. Browning's archery models were produced in greater numbers than some boutique brands, but high-condition examples are becoming scarce. Many were used as working bows, not collectibles, which makes clean survivors increasingly desirable. Collectors seek early production models with intact markings and unaltered limbs. Values vary, but interest remains steady. Browning archery bows represent a period when a large manufacturer applied industrial discipline to traditional design without losing functional integrity. They also benefit from brand crossover interest. Firearms collectors sometimes step into archery collecting through Browning, which broadens demand beyond traditional bow enthusiasts. That crossover helps stabilize prices and keeps these bows visible in auction spaces where purely archery-focused brands might be overlooked. While that doesn't make them rare by default, it does help preserve their place in the broader collectible market. Shakespeare bows. Before Shakespeare became synonymous with entry-level archery gear, the company produced bows that reflected careful design and respectable materials. Early Shakespeare recurves used laminated hardwood risers, paired with fiberglass limbs tuned for durability and ease of shooting. These bows were approachable without being crude. The draw cycle was manageable, and arrow flight remained consistent, even with imperfect form. That made them popular with recreational shooters and beginners who wanted equipment that wouldn't fight them. Many of these bows were affordable when new, which led to widespread use. As a result, surviving examples in clean condition are harder to find than production numbers might suggest. Collectors now value early models that retain original finishes and hardware, ones like the Ocala X17, the Ocala Special X14A, and Wonderbow model X1762. Shakespeare bows occupy an interesting space in the collector market. They aren't rare because of exclusivity, but because they were genuinely used. That history adds to their appeal for archers who value accessibility paired with honest design. What often surprises collectors is how well the early Shakespeare bows shoot when properly set up. Modern strings, matched arrows, and basic tuning can bring these bows back to life quickly. The shootability of these bows changes how they're perceived. Instead of shelf-bound curiosities, they become usable pieces of history. This dual role, both collectible and functional, makes early Shakespeare bows very appealing to collectors. Ben Pearson Archery. Ben Pearson played a central role in bringing archery to the American mainstream. His bows balanced performance with affordability, allowing more people to participate without sacrificing quality. Early Pearson recurves used laminated hardwood cores reinforced with fiberglass, producing bows that were resilient and predictable. Pearson understood that consistency mattered more than maximum speed for most shooters. His designs favored smooth draws and forgiving releases, which helped archers build confidence quickly. That philosophy made Pearson bows common in clubs, schools, and hunting camps. Production scaled significantly over time, but early models remained sought after. Collectors look for bows produced before heavy cost-cutting measures, when craftsmanship still guided material selection. Values depend heavily on condition and era, but interest remains strong, especially in vintage models like the Predator, the Mercury Marauder, and the Hunter 709. Pearson's influence also shows up in how many other bowyers learned from his production methods. Even craftsmen who later moved into boutique bow making often started with Pearson equipment or designs. Owning one isn't just owning a bow, it's owning a reference point that shaped how American archery evolved across multiple generations of bow makers. Bear Archery. Bear Archery sits at the center of American traditional archery history. Founded by Fred Bear in 1933, the company blended craftsmanship with an understanding of how people actually shoot. Early Bear recurves and longbows focused on balance, smooth draw cycles, and durability in the field. Models like the Kodiak and Grizzly became benchmarks because they worked across skill levels. Beginners could grow into them, and experienced archers could rely on them under pressure. The use of laminated woods and fiberglass allowed Bear bows to perform consistently in varied conditions. But Fred Bear's influence extended beyond equipment. He promoted ethical hunting, disciplined practice, and respect for the craft. That philosophy shaped the company's design and its following. Early Bear bows like the Kodiak, the Super Kodiak, and the Bear Takedown recurve command strong collector interest today. And again, original finishes, intact tips, and documented provenance significantly affect value. And that's our take on some of the most collectible traditional bows still circulating today. If you're shooting one of these, or something similar that deserves more recognition, please let us know in the comments down below. Share this with someone who appreciates good glass and wood, and make sure to hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into archery history.